This episode is about minutes 111 through 115 of The Empire Strikes Back with returning guest Camila Quiñones. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today is a monumental set of minutes. This is minutes 111 through 115 of The Empire Strikes Back, and in this set of 5 minutes, Darth Vader reveals that he is Luke's father, Luke loses a hand, and Leia senses Luke through the Force. An incredible span for both the story and the music and the sound design. And I'm really excited to have Camila back to the show. Camila, also known as Boricua Wookiee, also host of Beings of the Galaxy, a podcast about Star Wars narratives, fictional Star Wars narratives, something like that, set in the Star Wars universe. We talked in the Last Jedi season about Luke and Leia's reunion. And that's, part of the reason I wanted to have you back for these minutes, because we have kind of our first Luke and Leia real, deep sensing moment. So yeah, these are nice bookends. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited. Every time you text me and say, hey, you want to come back to Star Wars Music Minute? I'm like, yes, because you're one of my favorite people to talk about Star Wars with. So always. And then when I saw the minutes, I was like, what? These minutes? I'm so honored. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's so rich for text and just analysis on every level. If there existed a podcast like this for the cinematography of Star Wars or other aspects, I would also be really interested in what those conversations are like and what the focus of those are. Before we start listening to the minutes, I know that you recently attended a table read of The Empire Strikes Back. What was it like? First of all, what was that like? And what was it like when you got to these scenes?
Yeah, it was really awesome. The premise of it was that I have a friend of mine, his name is Justin. He goes by Freddie's roommate on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all platforms. And he had been missing the time during the pandemic when they would do table reads of different movies, but the people they would cast in these roles would offer an opportunity to look at these popular movies through a different lens. For instance, The Social Network, being a completely female cast, says something new about that movie. And so with The Empire Strikes Back, he wanted to do that as well and cast folks in roles that they normally wouldn't be cast as. And so he cast the trilogy plus Darth Vader were all women of color. And I had the extreme honor of playing Luke Skywalker, which was pretty incredible and wonderful and amazing, and really helped reinvigorate a different love for Star Wars that I hadn't had in a minute, because I had just kind of been away from Star Wars for a little bit. So doing that table read was really helpful in coming back to Star Wars. But then also my unpopular opinion is that Empire is actually one of my least favorite Star Wars movies, which I feel like is heresy in this fandom, but everyone loves what they love. But that being said, doing this table read gave me a new kind of love for this movie and these characters, and then especially this scene when we got to it, just playing Luke made it so much more emotional, and it even made me cry while I was reading it during the table read, because you're really into the character and you're trying to draw. I'm not an actor by any sense, but being a writer, I always trying to really dig into character motivation. So you're trying to pull out where all of that emotion is coming from and how he's feeling when he's hearing, oh shoot, this man is my father. So it was really, really special to be able to take part in that. It was really, really awesome. So everyone should do table reads of
I wish.
their favorite movies.
How does one even get? Did you use the screenplay? Like, was this streamed somewhere or was it private? Like,
it was streamed, a one-time stream event that I think it was like last month, January, maybe end of January, beginning of February. He made it like a Zoom webinar, and then people could tune in and watch, but he didn't record it because didn't want to get in trouble with the mouse for any copyright things. So it wasn't recorded. It was a one-time thing, but I think he wants to do more. But there's however many Star Wars movies, like there are more that you can do, different kinds of casts that you can do. So I hope he does more because I want to do more. It was really fun.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone to that. I'm gonna keep an eye out now for the future.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll keep you posted if he does any future ones.
Thank you. I can't really actually, but at the same time, I can't imagine these scenes without the music. So I'm curious how that even went. But also, if, assuming that the people reading were familiar with Star Wars, I bet a lot of this music was kind of in your head.
Yeah, and he was still, part of the reason too is that he was playing music. Like he would go through and hit the music cues at the certain scenes. So there was still music, which was, which I think was super, super helpful because it would have been weird if it was no music, especially for something like Star Wars that is so heavy with the music. And the music is so tied to the story. So there was still music, which was nice. But I think that was the biggest part of the copyright. We couldn't stream that.
Yeah.
With the music playing.
I know the struggle. It's a very annoying struggle. It's extremely annoying.
Yeah, you get it.
I get it. Okay, let's get into the minutes.
Let's do it.
You are beaten. It is useless to resist.
So it starts with no music.
Destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
Okay. They're clashy clash. And okay, we know what happens right there. That is the moment Luke gets his hand cut off. And that's when the music comes in. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put a screenshot from that moment. And these sparks that are flying are just like, this is one of the very cool locations. As in the last episode, the guest, Dan Golding, alerted me to the final frame of that set of minutes, which was actually the first frame of this set of minutes, where you can see where the matte painting begins and ends. I don't know if you can see, do you see how there's that like ring of light? Kind of.
I don't see anything on my end.
Okay. Sorry. That's my fault.
It's okay.
That's okay. I am putting something on screen where it's, you can see the ring of light that is around where the fight is taking place. You can see that it's only reflecting up to a certain point. And then it is just black.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And that's where the matte painting, you can see where the matte painting filled things in. You can only briefly see it. I did not catch it until Dan mentioned it because it goes by so quickly. But yeah, there it is.
Crazy.
Yeah. I think I'm glad that was left in. It just makes me appreciate the matte painting more, just to be reminded that that's what that looked like. Mm-hmm. But yeah, light has a way of illuminating things that we think we have missed. like literally and figuratively. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of poetic that the light there and that spark of light is where you see like the limitations of this scenario, this setting. Mm-hmm. All right, so this music that is starting when Luke loses his hand, first of all, just the anguished shout that Luke gives. I mean, it's one of many anguished sounds that Luke is going to make in the next 5 minutes. But this is when the cue losing a hand begins and the track Rescue from Cloud City / Hyperspace. So if you have the soundtrack, it's just right there at the beginning. And so let's continue listening a little bit after this French horn stinger.
There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you. Luke, you do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you!
What do you make of what we're hearing? And I'll also play it without the dialogue so we can hear the music more in the forefront, because I know you can barely hear it there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how playful / inquisitive the music sounds. Like I can't put my finger on exactly like what instrument is playing, but there's like a do like a little like trickle of music that's coming through as he's talking. And it just made me think, because it also made me think of the question that you asked about, what does music sound like what does Star Wars music sound like in 3 minutes or in 3 words? And I have my 3 words, so I won't use that now. But another word that I thought of is that sound, that set of music is so distinctly Star Wars because it feels like so inquisitive. You know what I mean? Like I don't hear that kind of trilling of notes in anything else.
Okay, let's listen to it on just the soundtrack so that you can point out more clearly what's happening, because I want to know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
All right. And stop me when you hear it.
Like that part.
Oh, the like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. That's the flute, and then later it's clarinet. It's little woodwind, little lines. And I know what you mean. It is inquisitive. It is very Star Wars.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you have more of a breadth of knowledge of scores and different films and things like that. But would you feel like because I feel like there are a lot of times we'll hear things in different movies. We're like, oh, that sounds like this, and that sounds like this. And there's something coming up eventually that reminds me of a different movie, but we'll talk about it when we get to that minute. But it feels like that sound specifically, I don't hear anywhere else.
Oh, I think that's a really good like element that you stumbled upon, that you pointed out, because I can't off the top of my head think of other types of scores that do a similar like John Williams does it, but yeah, listeners, I'd be curious what you think about this, because those little things feel so Star Wars, especially in these moments where the music is kind of out of the way, like it's kind of providing a bedding of something for the dialogue to sit on top of, and it kind of makes the bedding like, so it has to be stagnant enough, it has to be out of the way enough that it's not that doesn't compete with the dialogue, but it has to have something moving, a little bit something moving, so that it is also kind of kinetic. It's alive. It's not just, putting a plain black background underneath the dialogue. It's like giving it some texture. And I feel like that's what it's doing. And what it's going on top of is, well, I'll just keep playing. See, very soft strings. See, there's the clarinet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very quiet. It's quiet. Every line is being played really softly. It's like pianissimo. But because of the way that the strings are laying that bed down, which is very slurred, very not static, but they're going like this, basically. So they're doing, little glissando between very close notes. So it's kind of like it's just wavering just a little bit. And it's, it's not like the strings are going like I don't know, something very fast and separated and in your face. So it kind of provides the perfect soft bed for something else delicate to actually be heard on top of that. Because a line like that in the midst of something, busier would just get lost. But since it's not busy, it is allowed to, I don't know, flourish like spring, like a little sprout.
Yeah. And I feel like it builds a different kind of tension that works so well with this scene in this moment, because like you just played, if it was quicker and louder and faster, it doesn't match the tone of the scene and the build of the scene. And I think it helps with like the slow build of getting toward the realization that the revelation that Vader is Luke's father, and that because there's so much happening in terms of the sounds and the music and the dialogue in the scene, is that you can't have something that overpowers this very important dialogue. But rather, I love what you said about how it is like a great bed for it, and it is moving and it's alive, and it still again has that pressure to it, and it's like simmering. It's like a pot is simmering and something is going to boil over eventually, and there's these little pieces like trickling in and trickling through, but we're not there yet all the way.
Totally. And it's like a kind of a cardinal rule in playing music, that if you're aiming for a climax somewhere, you have to make sure that you've given yourself room to grow to that. It's sort of like a common faux pas that like beginner musicians will do, where like they'll be playing a piece that has, a complete piece of music will probably have some sort of an arc. It'll have some sort of like phrasing, highs and lows and whatever. But it's kind of an amateur thing to just play everything kind of loud, or just like medium loud, just to start kind of everything at a loud, or to anticipate a climax too soon. Like, that something really big is about to happen. And so you kind of lose your chill, like you don't hold back enough. You kind of give a little bit too much away too soon. And compositionally, this is sort of, it's written in a way that kind of is not really allowing the orchestra to give too much away too soon. That's like literally how it's phrased in like orchestra rehearsal. The conductor will be like, don't give it away too soon. Don't give it away.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I love that how it like this scene is such a beautiful picture of the way that all of these pieces in filmmaking come together to like truly build out the scene. And it's, okay, what is the element that is going to be used to give the information that we need the audience to know? Is it the music in this particular scene? No, it's the words. Like, we need to hear what Darth Vader is saying, because that is where the weight of the scene is. There are other scenes where the weight is in the music, because people aren't talking, and we don't need to hear what someone is saying to understand the stakes of the scene, but rather it's in the performance that an actor is giving, combined with the music cues, combined with how the camera is positioned and the way that the camera is telling a point of view. And so how all these elements work together. And it's like in this particular set of minutes, the focus needs to be on the dialogue so the music can't overpower it. But that doesn't mean that the music doesn't still add to it and build a fuller picture of what's going on.
100%. And I think like what, visually even, it's a very simple, like there's not that much to distract us. It's in, the shaft or whatever that they are in is very repetitive. It's dark. It's almost like a calculated sensory deprivation. You have to focus on the dialogue. You're not like, oh wow, that's a really cool, outfit. That's a really cool new, it's very stripped. It's pretty stripped down.
Yeah.
And this has come up a bit in the last couple episodes, but it really lends itself to, I don't know, I feel like it would lend itself to a table read now that I'm thinking, even though the music isn't there, like it is very dramatic and like a theatrical, like as if it were a play or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just fantastic. And again, the ambiance of the wind of the sound design is like, it's definitely very present, but it's pretty persistent. And when things are very persistent, they don't take up as much energy to process because you're not like, oh, that's a new thing. You kind of get used to the wind sound. So it's just a really nice like ambience that we get used to. And it kind of blends in with the music, actually.
Yeah, 100%. There are so many, like it wasn't until I was sitting down and preparing for our conversation where I was like really trying to pick out the different sounds that I heard how much wind is actually happening, how the music sounds, but especially the wind. That's what I'd never heard before until like actually sitting down with it and parsing it apart. So yeah, it really blends in really nicely.
Yeah, let's listen to that a little bit.
I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you! If you only knew the power of the dark.
It's really blending in.
Obi-Wan.
But you can hear the wind is like whistling. It's like...
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, it blends in so, like, I really want to know whether John Williams heard that wind sound before writing this or not. Like, the order in which sound design and, like, how much John Williams was aware of sound is one thing that I'm not really sure about throughout this entire movie. But I don't know, it's kind of a major coincidence if he didn't know about the sound, because just the way that the way that the strings are written to, and there's even harmonics like in the bass, kind of like, I don't know, it sounds like the wind, which is going. It's, I don't know, the harmonics with that. I really can't tell where one starts and the other one ends.
Yeah. It's like a give and take. It's like sometimes the wind builds and then it fades off as the music builds. And so there's like this constant wave of the blending of the music, but then also like what's actually happening in the scene. So it feels like it's like we as the audience are hearing both the music and the sound, but the characters are only hearing, the music and the wind, but the characters are hearing only the wind, but in a way the wind is also doing for them what the music is doing for us in a kind of cool way.
Yeah.
Providing nice ambiance for their little fight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's like providing positive ambiance for Luke. But.
Definitely. Oh, definitely not. It's definitely like Luke is freaking out for sure. The wind is like, dude, this is intense. Something bad's about to happen.
Yeah.
Like we hear the music of the wind doing that.
Totally. Oh, it's so good. Okay, let's continue listening.
Never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough.
See, things are starting to subtly get more agitated.
No. I am your father.
Okay. That's what we are saving up for.
Mm-hmm.
The music was holding back, as it should. So when this Imperial March theme comes in, all slow, after this line, this huge reveal, it too feels really monumental. I mean, we've heard the Imperial March a ton throughout this movie, and we hear it really bombastically. We hear it in many contexts, but this is really a kind of a simple context, but for me, it's like the most chilling.
100%. And it like fits so perfectly with the slow build that the climax is also very gentle. And it's like, I don't need to, again, it ties back with the way that the words work in tandem with the music. I feel that it's like, the music doesn't need to do anything drastic to communicate to the audience the weight of what we just heard, because it's like the words do a lot on their own and the performances do a lot on their own, and the music just adds to it, rather than the music is a supporting character in this moment and not the main character, and it deserves an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in this scene.
I love what you said about it being a subtle climax, because it really is. Like, I think it would be really easy to overwrite the music here and just like make it just kind of over the top. But it's a subtle, it's a humble climax where it doesn't need much more than what it is. It strikes me as very self-assured, like very assured writing and directing, and it takes confidence on the part of the director and the composer and just like everyone involved to do that. And I feel like this movie has a lot of confidence in like creative confidence.
Yeah. I love that. I've never thought about it in that way, but it's like, it's so clear which themes in Star Wars are the ones that have the confidence of not needing extra stuff to make them as epic as they are. And it's like this one for sure. And once you hear those simple notes, you don't need all of the other, like you don't need all of these other instruments or all of these other things to capture what that singular theme is saying in the moment. Like it's just you know automatically what's happening here and the weight of the moment when you hear that theme.
Yeah. And then all the other elements again are just supporting that, where it's not just one thing alone. I mean, one thing that Irvin Kershner did a ton throughout this movie is remove music, where John Williams would write music for certain parts and a lot of that music didn't actually make it to the film. You can hear it on like the special edit, you can hear it on the soundtracks, but a lot of the music didn't make it to the film because Kirsch felt that, a lot of the times just the ambiance, just giving a little bit more ambiguity and space before immediately telling the audience how to feel was appropriate. And I think the aggregate of doing that throughout the film, like we're already used to a lot of things not having music. Like a lot of when we first meet Yoda, a lot of Hoth is no music. Like, because I think we're already used to that, here it's kind of earned the ability to pull off this more humble climax where we haven't spent, we haven't set up a precedent of doing everything really, really, really big and totally wall to wall before, which is why this space here doesn't feel like it's lacking anything. It feels like our nervous system has acclimated to this, baseline. This just, all right, let's continue. I'm going to go back a little bit and then continue.
No. It's not true. That's impossible.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No! No!
Luke, can destroy the Emperor. He has foreseen this. It is your destiny. Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
Shout out to Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
I think as a kid, I perhaps thought this was, I don't remember what I thought exactly, but I think I probably thought that it was more overwrought than it needed to be. Like, I probably thought it, and it may be because it's been memed so much, just like Luke's reaction has kind of been made fun of a lot. So it's kind of hard for me to think of what my like native very first reaction may have been like, where it's just it's just very anguished and very over the top. But, you know, I know now this is an extremely agitating moment. It's very shocking. Mm-hmm. James Earl Jones's delivery with "I am your father" is like the way that he says "I" is just it makes the line "I am your father."
Yeah. It's, oh gosh. It's, yeah. I love the way he says "I'm your father." It's so good. And I am right there with you. I feel like there's been so much, the memification of Luke going, no, 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 truly, I think detracted from the moment for me until I did that table read where I was Luke and in it and trying to get, okay, how do you deliver this without making it a meme the way that everybody sees it as? And then you're actually realizing how heavy and how emotional it is for him to come to this realization, not this person that. And also there's the way that he says, he told me enough. He told me you killed him. The way that Luke says, he told me you killed him is so dripping with hate and anger. And then to then get the turn that it's like, I hate you. And I had this entire perspective of what my father actually is. And then, oh no, my father's actually this person that I completely hate. And like wrestling with your feelings and knowing that it's not true, but you do know it's true. And maybe Luke's known all along. Maybe that's been like at the back of his mind and the hint in the back of his mind. And then it's like, because I think that's the hardest thing for me, to the how quick the turn is to be like, you're not my father, and then your feelings, you know they're true, and then he just realizes that it is true. So I think that's why it's so can be easily memed, because it does feel very like, that's not true. Oh, it is true. Ah, you know.
He does pretty immediately, like, even though he says like that's impossible, it seems like he immediately searches his feelings and knows it to be true, like Vader said.
Yeah.
Which, to his credit, like, one could live in that state of denial for a very long time if they wanted to. But Luke is honest with his feelings, which I respect. I think Luke, throughout the movie, I don't know if he saw this coming, but I think, you know, as per the cave vision where he sees his face in the mask, I think he has had certainly, you know, latent fear that something about him is intrinsically perhaps something like Vader. Like that would be his worst fear, to be something evil like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, it's come true. Your fear that maybe you are more connected to this dark side than you thought. I mean, obviously, like, he has a lot of anger in him that Yoda and Obi-Wan are like, bro, you can't go. You're not finished with your training. And Luke, being a Skywalker, is like, no, I have to go save my friends, which is like very noble. And I feel like if I was in Luke's shoes, I would do the same thing, because you're telling me you want me to sit here and keep lifting rocks when my friends are about to die? What?
Oh, Camila, no. I feel like you would do that too.
Like, come on, we can go lift rocks tomorrow, but we got to go save our friends, you know?
Oh my gosh. I don't know what I would do.
You would do the smarter thing, probably, and the more rational thing.
I don't know. I might still help my friends, but I think it would take me I think you would immediately decide, no question, I'm going to help my friends. And I think if I eventually got there, it would be like after an hour of deliberation. Like, I think I would get there eventually, but it would just take me a while.
I feel like you would go in with a better plan and actually like be more productive. And I know for sure I would go in and just be like, all right, we're going to just figure it out. We got to get here. They might be dead if I don't get here now, you know? And it's like,
it's kind of what Luke does.
Exactly. Very, very emotional. That's the thing. It's like, I like what you said, that he is very honest with his emotions. And I struggle with the Jedi Order being so very like, don't be emotional, because I am a very emotional person. Now, that's not to say that they're wrong in the sense that it's good to like control your emotions, but then there's the side of, completely suppress your emotions. And I'm like, that's not great either. Because there are some people who just physically are unable to suppress their emotions. And the Skywalkers are those people. That's for sure.
I don't know. Luke does learn to control his emotions pretty well. I don't know if he's controlling them so much as controlling his reaction to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, is probably something that we could all benefit from. Not suppressing. Definitely not suppressing. Never suppressing. That's never the answer.
No.
But finding some sort of peace with the flow of life, perhaps. I could benefit from that for sure.
Oh, same. Immediately.
But it is interesting how like different, people in the Jedi Order can take that principle and apply it in different ways. In some of them in probably more helpful ways than others.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's I think and this is not we don't want to keep talking. We can talk about the Jedi Order a different day, because that is an entirely different wormhole to go down, because I thought about it a lot. But yeah, it's the question of like, there's the overarching teaching of learning how to control your emotions. But of course, different people do it in different ways. And if you approach everybody with the same method, like that's not going to work for everyone, because not everyone is built the same way. Not everyone handles emotions the same way. So it's important to adjust teaching methods for different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is like, just on a language, like not, if language is like a symbolic representation of what someone means, saying one phrase to one person might mean something completely different to them than what it means to you. And so even if it is even if you intend to like transmit a good teaching, a good lesson, it might not be read in the way that you think. So some of these lessons that are structured more like sayings, like just can sound harmful from a certain perspective. And yeah, there's always going to be some ambiguity when just passing around, like little lessons. And I think this can especially become difficult when the Jedi Order when there's not a large, amount of Jedi around, not a diverse, amount of perspectives around, to kind of, check and balance each other and kind of say the same lesson in different ways. Like, oh, when Yoda says this, he means it like this type of thing.
Yeah. 100%. I would not be a good Jedi. That's for sure. So bad.
Because of the emotions.
Yeah. And the attachment. Oh my gosh. You want me to not be attached to people? How does one do that? I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. I feel like I relate to Jedi, but not because but I don't think I would fare well in order like that. I feel like I would be much more of like a wayfinder than like a Jedi.
Yes.
But the ability to use the Force, I feel like, is something that for some reason really strikes me as something that I can relate to for some reason.
Yeah. 100%. I believe that. Would you hear the Force like Avar, like a song?
Oh God. I don't. So the way that the High Republic kind of does that, I feel like we've talked about this. We've had an extensive conversation about the High Republic on the other podcast, on the High Ground, or was it something? Yeah, on Chaco and Element 7's podcast. But yeah, I think I would, but I think I wouldn't like be slotted just into one of those. You know, I can't remember what analogy I made, but it feels like, I don't know, Pokemon. Like it feels like a little superhero-y to me. Like everyone has their Force power. Everyone feels the Force in different ways. This one does it like this. Here's their trading card that has their. I hear the Force through music. This one hears feels the Force through vibrations. This one feels the Force through that. And I don't like that. But I feel like I would feel the Force through musical, sound-oriented ways. But not only. I think it would be less like as a song. I hear the Force as a song, and more just like, I don't know, it would have to be like an embodied experience that would almost be difficult to explain because it would be so ingrained in my body.
Yeah, it's like you can feel it the way that you feel. I feel like it's like you're not like using the Force and hearing a song playing. It's like the way that you understand and feel the flow of music when you are playing music is how you could feel the Force moving throughout you when you're using it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just even in regular life, when the way that people come up with ideas and the way that people create, kind of as an analogy for using the Force. So, like when you're coming up with like a story and writing something, it's like, I don't know, where do your thoughts crystallize first? How do they manifest? Like, I feel like that kind of starts to touch upon what I think the Force would feel like to, be tapping on different people. Like, agreed. I think some people, Leia, I think at least at first, what awakens her Force connection, well, we'll get there, is like feeling her brother, like feeling this person that she cares about. And I mean, like for me, ideas will crystallize in like it's somewhat visual, but like I will like have my hands in the air and I'll be like thinking about music that I'm writing, and I'm like, and this goes like this, but then it's like this, and then it's like, oh, this thing that I'm visualizing, and it kind of crystallizes in a way that I can't really put into words, and that would be sort of like the Force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
All right, let's continue. Okay, so I love this part. Luke is looking down and assessing the situation.
Come with me. It is the only way.
Okay. This moment is so cool to me because Luke sees that he's screwed.
Yep.
He does not have any good option here. And the music kind of vamps for a little bit while he is looking and assessing, and then we will see, and we will kind of hear that he makes a decision to, for better or worse, jump. He doesn't know where he's going to land. Mm-hmm. Musically, here we have this, like, the strings are doing this double 16th note little vamp where it's like, it's basically going around the Hungarian, like a double harmonic scale. So. So we have a half step, augmented second, and then another half step, another augmented second. And we don't hear, I mean, we do hear this scale a lot in Star Wars, but this, obviously, and it's like outlining, you know, it's for several measures, just outlining very clearly this, this mode. I feel like it really I feel like it stands in contrast to the rest of this cue. And it kind of doesn't, it moves, but it doesn't move in the same sense that like the arc of a melody moves. It moves, but it's like kind of, you know, doing a kind of similar, it's like jumping between, okay, here it is. It's like you're scrolling through options again and again. You're like, you're do.
It's frantic. It feels frantic.
It is frantic, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which matches again the tone of what's happening in the scene. Because we've like gotten to the realization, we've gotten to the reveal and the realization, and like now what is Luke gonna do? What is Vader gonna do? What are we gonna do as the audience? We're all just all parties like, what's going on? And then it like helps with the transition into the next, like very clear, and we'll get there in a second, but like the notes that come like right after this when Luke makes his decision are it's like frantic, and then boom, I know what I'm gonna do, and it just like matches. It transitions really well into like when he makes his choice, the music matches like his emotional energy throughout.
Totally. Oh yeah, let's listen to that point. Yeah, the transition is very clear. Oh, the wind.
Come with me. It is the only way.
There we got a brief little fanfare. Dee, 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 dee.
Yeah.
And it's that's his choice.
Yeah, and when I heard it, when I was watching the minutes that you sent, immediately I thought of the Captain America theme, the do 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 boom. Oh. And I was like, okay, so my mind immediately goes into hero mode. Like Luke, it feels, okay, at first it feels like you get the frantic. Okay, now he made the decision, but the music tells us that like, at least I'm reading it, that the music tells us he made the right decision. And it's not that he's out of the clear yet, because it's not like the music after it continues like being that epic, like, all right, you made the right decision. Now you're off and gonna go save the day, you know, because the music all after this is still, I feel like, very suspenseful and very precarious.
Perilous, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, perilous. Yes, perfect. That's the perfect way to put it. But it's like in this one moment, okay, he made the right choice. Not out of the woods yet, but
yeah.
After all, it's like a very clear transitional. The peril is no longer Vader. Now the peril is something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right choice is, for him, it's like a steadfast, like a clear choice. Because for his survival, it might not be the right choice. But for his soul, it is the right choice. And he knows that.
Yeah.
So, I like how brief it is, because if it were to go on longer, it would detract from the real peril that he is in, as he now, this is his exit strategy, which is not a strategy. He's falling down this massive shaft. Hardly a strategy.
We love a good impulse decision.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out. We're falling.
Yeah.
We're going to maybe figure it out. Ben likes to show up sometimes. Maybe he'll show up now. Oh I don't know, but at least I'm not with Vader. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh my gosh. There was this, like, I can't remember the quote exactly, but I took this, probably it was a commercial acting class, like a long time ago. And the kind of tagline for the class was like, fall and the net will appear, jump and the net will appear, or something like that. And I always thought about how much BS that is sometimes. But in terms of like making yourself vulnerable for a scene or something, then sure. But here, Luke is basically doing that. He's like, you know what? Maybe that one thing I learned in improv, maybe I'll just fall and the net will appear.
Is that how the Force works? That like they said, don't give in to my anger. I didn't. So now the net's supposed to appear. It's supposed to all be okay, right? And it's like, and then he's like, okay, I made it to the tunnel. I'm good. Oh, nope. Now I'm falling through. Oh, I caught this thing. I'm good. Oh, nope. I'm about to, where's the net? Where is it?
Yeah, he goes through several levels of this fall. Like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh no, oh, like yeah, like the studio audience is groaning, like, oh, like, oh no,
yeah. Because you think you're like, oh, he got away, great, but the music, going back to the music, is like, oh no, he's not out of the clear at all. It's gonna get worse before it gets better, and he could very well plummet through a planet atmosphere.
Yeah. I think it's like, I do recall how before Luke left for Cloud City, Ben did say, like, you're on your own. I can't help you. Almost as if he's anticipating that Luke will do something brash, thinking that Ben's going to save him. But he's like, just so you know, all your decisions are going to be all on you. I'm not helping you.
I mean, he's been through this before with his good old dad, Mr. Anakin Skywalker. Like, Ben's like, gosh, I've gone through this so many times, and I know exactly how it's going to end, but you're going to have to figure it out, and I'm not going to save you because I literally am a ghost.
That reminds me, like, I love seeing glimpses of Anakin in Luke because although their paths went very different ways, I don't know, the parts that are similar, I think, make Luke come off as even stronger of a character. And yeah, I like thinking of Luke as being initially like perhaps just as brash and, you know, impulsive as Anakin. I don't know if one could ever be as impulsive as Anakin, but yeah, it's good seeing that, like, it's not like one turned out bad because they're just a different type of person. And if you're this type of person, you're going to turn out like Anakin did, which it's not the case necessarily.
Yeah. You see that, like, you see a lot of Anakin in him, but then also it's like he has what Anakin didn't have
Support
in
system.
him. Yeah. Had a support system, has like a lot of his heart is Padme also too, which helps like mediate all of that, everything that, like, Anakin went the way he did because first off his own choices, but also his support system looked very different than the way that, like, Luke's support system and the way that Anakin was grown up. The world looked completely different. It's just you can see the clear influences of his father in him, but yet there's a different way that he was raised and the different way that he interacts with the world, and his circumstances are different, which then lead to being able to make different choices.
Yeah, there's also something to Anakin being on the side of the people who are winning and Luke being on the side of people who are rebelling against something. Like, Anakin wasn't rebelling against anything. He was in the top order in the Republic, and I feel like there's something about, like, okay, how am I going to phrase this? Okay, you know how, like, there are these psychological experiments where people are put in different positions of perhaps of power or whatever, and it kind of turns out that, like, being in power kind of makes you a crappier person, like anyone, and you kind of end up filling, like, kind of the role that you have. Like in the famous, like, Stanford prison experiment, people were, like, you know, just assigned to be a prisoner or like a warden, and they had to shut down the experiment because the wardens, who were just normal people, they just got assigned to that role, became so abusive and were, like, torturing the people, you know, it was so horrible. And then there have even been, like, studies on what happens when you are rich. So they've done I think they did it with, like, Monopoly and people playing Monopoly, but some people starting with, like, tons of cash and some people just starting with a little bit of cash, and the people starting with tons of cash would, like, pretty much always win. And then when citing, you know, why they won, instead of, like, they wouldn't say, oh, well, I started with huge advantage. They would say, like, oh, well, I made good investments. I strategized. Oh, I have a background in this. So like, I kind of knew what to do. Like, and so just being in kind of a more privileged position kind of can make one crappier. And Luke being a rebel is, I don't know, not to say like rebels are just better people, but I think just fundamentally being in a position of like fighting the cause against something oppressive is just different from just being on top.
Yeah. And Anakin has that narrative of like the oppressed who becomes the oppressor, in the sense of like he grew up as a slave and
he loves being in power.
Loves it. And it's like, this kid was, you see where he grew up and he never wants to go back to that. So that's childhood with like intense fear and of course, who everyone would fear going back to that, being back in that horrible, horrible situation that he grew up in, being a slave. And so now he's in power. He's going to do everything he can to keep that power because he knows what it's like to be powerless. And it's not that Luke has been powerless. He feels powerless because he's stuck on this backwater planet Tatooine and then gets to join the cause. But the cause is fighting for what's right and doing what's right. But he grew up with a loving home with people who cared about him and had that stability, and has different fears, obviously, than Anakin does. And in a sense, like it's interesting to see the way that like they both handle power, because Luke is not ready for it. Which I feel like you see when you get to the whole his journey to the Last Jedi, and how he ends being this person who was like, I was Luke Skywalker, I was the greatest of all time, and I couldn't deal with that. And rather than like facing his failure and going down a path that Anakin did, he just shuts himself out completely and suppresses everything. And so like they go down two very different paths when they hit their ultimate lows. It's really interesting. I am a person who tends not to think too deeply about the male characters in Star Wars. So it's fun when I get to think about them because I don't often. So this is very interesting.
That's funny. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so Luke is now, after he makes his decision to jump, which we have just heard in the little brief fanfare, the music is very, it's going to be kind of falling. Like, let's listen.
If you pause it really quick.
Yeah.
Do you hear, did I make that up or does someone go Luke? At 2:25.
Okay.
It sounds like, and it could just be, I think it's like the wind or something, but it sounds like Luke to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh. It was like, Luke.
Yeah, it sounds like when I listened to just the audio for the first time, I was like, did someone just say Luke's name? Was that like a whispered Luke? Is there a Luke in the Force?
I mean, I feel like it's wind, but I did hear that it kind of sounded like Luke. It did kind of sound like Luke. Like a Luke.
Right? Yeah. It's definitely, I don't think they're like intending, oh, we're going to add in this little like,
yeah, if you play The Empire Strikes Back backwards, you'll hear the wind is just saying Luke.
Exactly. Like, I don't think that's it, but I heard it and I was like, oh, I feel like it's just a cool little coincidence, but it's definitely like, yeah, it sounds like Luke.
That's pretty funny. So as Luke is descending down the shafts, like first there's the reactor shaft, and then there's an exhaust pipe So, okay, this is the first, I'll put an image up. This is the first sort of one. It's like an inner tube. And it looks like he's, going down a water slide.
Yeah.
He's sliding down there.
Oh, Star Wars is so funny sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Was that the second shaft? That may have been the second one. Okay, sorry. That's the second one. But the first one is just what we already see in the, it's where we already are. It's very dark to see. But, yeah, it's what the matte painting shows, where we have already been. And then this is the inner tube, the exhaust pipe. And that makes more sense. And there's like the whoop as Luke enters. And I think that's probably what you're hearing as Luke.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the sound of him entering that pipe. It's kind of sucking him in or something.
Yeah.
But the music is okay. The music in that section is, and feel free to jump in with like just describing what you think it sounds like. I'll play it again to see if any more visceral words come up.
Son. Come with me. It is the only way.
All right. Motion is definitely a word that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Falling for sure. It has that do 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 boo 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 boo, and it's like you can feel it going down.
Tumbling a little bit because it also feels like it gets it's fast, and then I feel like it gets even faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like quicking up. It's very lively. And the pace is quicking. It's like the music is now we're getting to the point where the music is more of a subject than it was in the earlier seeds because we don't have the dialogue communicating to us what's going on. But now it's like, okay, now we really need to rely on the music to tell the audience how perilous of a situation Luke is in.
Yes, and the way that this fall is musically depicted, where, the line, it starts in a higher pitched place than it ends. The way that it's stretched out over that long of time is actually quite impressive. Because if I'm just thinking, how am I going to depict like this really fast fall? I'm like, I don't know, like from here to there. I mean, that could take the span of 2 bars, and instruments only have the range that they have, so you don't have that many you don't even have like that many octaves to work with it. And that's the thing, it's like the actual range in between where this starts and where it ends isn't that big, but it's staggered in such a way that it always feels like some instrument is moving down. So like they don't all have to be moving down at the same time and at the same rate, but it's sort of like spaced out and really masterfully orchestrated and, composed to fill the space.
Yeah.
So like it's like just from the composer standpoint, I'm just like, oh, I need to study this part. This is really effective.
Yeah. And I love that like in between in the like moments as it's moving down, it has that. You've been on Rise of the Resistance, right?
Yes.
So when you're on like you're in the escape cart thing, and the music is like do 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 like to get you out. Like I feel like I was hearing those types of notes also like in the middle of the like do 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 do, and it was like do that like do 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 as it was like hitting these different levels. So rather than do 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 do, it was like that was like how it was spacing it out. You had those plateaus in a way as you're going down, which I feel like also helps emphasize and elongate his fall, because it's like he gets into this tunnel, sure, fairly quickly, but he's still got a ways to go until he's hanging upside down out underneath Cloud City.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, like I guess all the instrument, like some of the instruments, I don't know. I'll say that all of the instruments feel pretty stable here, except for the harp, which is going. But it's a very in the orchestra. It's a kind of a controlled fall, and there is that steady eighth note thing. I'll play it again.
Come with me. It is the only way.
So we have like the cello's kind of dee 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 dee, and then there I think is what you're thinking of, the dee 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 dee.
Yeah.
Is that what you're? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. Dee 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 dee. Like it is a faster. It's like a subdivision of the beat, and it's kind of anchoring, and then rhythmically it does recall that sort of Imperial's motif, and just like a common Star Wars, I guess, rhythmic gesture, which is, you know, the four, just lots of 16th notes with that accent type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. And the harp really, it's hard to hear in this context. I guess, let me switch back to the soundtrack. So we can hear this glorious section. Okay. I have this like spreadsheet of where the minutes correspond to the soundtrack.
I love it.
Like, okay, do you hear how the string, like, they're obviously the main line in the brass, they're going dee 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 dee, like dee. There's multiple notes, but like dee 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 dee, and then the strings are moving at a little bit of a slower rate and at different times. They're going. Like, but when you put them all together, okay. Oh, the way that it just like bunches up there at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so good. Yeah, the notes get faster toward the end, so it really does give the sense of that, I don't know, just, I feel like physics people, feel free to correct me, but I feel like at the end, don't objects move faster after they've started falling? Oh, I don't know. I may be remembering that incorrectly, but
I'm a writer, so I can't tell you that.
Okay. So never mind. Scratch that from the record. I don't know if what I said was true, but at least in my head, it's like I think of something tumbling and then like getting progressively faster. Perhaps not progressively in a linear way. Perhaps it's in a. I should stop talking. The more I say words, the more like ridiculous I sound.
I mean, no, but isn't there some whole thing that like if you dropped a bag of rocks and a bag of feathers from the same height, but at like a certain height, they would hit the ground at the same time?
I have heard that, and I remember doing this calculation in school, but then I think feathers is just like a bad example for this because of wind drag. So you would have to imagine, you'd have to imagine something where you would have to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So, but maybe like an elephant and a cat. Oh, I don't want to do that.
Oh,
why did I say
animals. Let's go back to inanimate objects.
Yeah, I immediately regretted that.
And a book. I don't know.
We can't think of big objects. A house. And a microphone.
There you go. Sure.
Okay, physicists. You can leave angry comments about this. Go ahead.
Passing it on to you.
So, musically at least, there is this tumbling that we hear where not only do those 16th notes come in, which is what you brought up, the da 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 da, but these 30-second notes even. And then the strings and some of the woodwinds are actually doing like trills, which just means like rapidly alternate these notes as fast as you can. So which is sort of like it's faster than all of the above because it's just as fast as you can play. So it'll be like. So you're only limited by how fast you can play. So it's, yeah. And then when it lands, and it just lands on these chords, these slow chords. Oh. It's such a distinct, like, the music takes you through such distinct phases of the narrative, of what's on screen, the musical painting or whatever.
Yeah. It's like this is the second climax of the scene, because I feel like that fanfare was our transition point to now Lucas facing a different kind of danger. And we have the like falling feels like it's the slow build the same way that it's like it's a cool I feel like it's a cool parallel structure, because it's like you have the gentle strings earlier that we were talking about parallels. I feel like the way that he's falling, everything like you were saying is very stable, and then and then they both like kind of build in a similar way, but then the way that they both climax is very different because of what they're trying to communicate. The way that it's like we have this very confident imperial march that doesn't need a lot of stuff around it, and if it was more overpowering, then you would get lost in the scene. But with like this is that this needs more happening, I feel like, to communicate the peril of the moment, because it doesn't have the same level of confidence as the similar tune of the Imperial March. Like the Imperial March is so specific to Star Wars that you're hearing that and you're not like, oh, I can think about in this movie when I hear like these exact same notes. It's like I hear those notes and I'm only thinking about Star Wars. But with that ending in this second part, this second climax, like you can think of other films that also have that very strident, not that I can think of any at this exact moment, but I know that I've seen them that have like those like similar feel to them at like a moment of peril for a character. And I don't know what I'm trying to say about that, but I guess it's just an observation.
Yeah, and I mean, and then when we land on those in that slower section, where rhythmically everyone's together, whether you're playing or the seconds are, the cellos are, everyone's together, but the tonality, like the clear pitch, the tonality is really obscured there, or it's really complicated. It's like a very big tangle. It's like sounds like knots to me. Yeah. It's not like an uncomplicated, like it's not or something like that. It's like that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
And then you have these like half steps rubbing up. Like, I don't know, it's like.
Yeah. It's like, this is the part of the silent, if you're watching a silent movie, this is the part where it cuts from the scene of the person on the train tracks and the train's coming, and then it cuts to the frame of the words on the screen that are saying a train is coming, and are they gonna win, and it's like choo, choo, choo. Like that's what's happening. I like picture here. It's very harsh and strident.
Yes, definitely. Good words. Harsh and strident. This whole section would make a great silent film, actually. It would work great.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, silent film with this music. Silent without dialogue. So let us continue. Well, we'll hear it again. Now that's a fall if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
We are now, okay, Luke is hanging from a weather vane, basically.
Oh, sweet Luke.
Yeah. Oh, the wind is even more. Oh gosh, okay, this part is like very visceral. Okay, we're getting to some moments right now, as if we haven't been already. Okay, let's paint a picture. I'm going to put something on screen so you can be reminded what this weather vane situation looks like. So the sun setting on this movie is extremely dramatic. Of course, this is happening at sunset, like last glimmer of light, sunset, like whatever that's called. And this extremely red, situation. Here's another shot of Luke. He is, this is rock bottom. It's rock. I think I'll say it's rock bottom, at least for now. Okay, let's listen. I want to go back to the polychord thing so we can get into it. Okay, so now he's landed on the weather vane. Oh, the way that the music rises. Oh, okay. So, first of all, I think it's pretty amazing. I mean, I was surprised upon studying these minutes how long this scene actually lasts. Like, we watch Luke struggle on that weather vane for quite a long time. Just attempting to make moves, attempting to, he keeps slipping and he keeps it's not working out. But we see him struggle for a long time. And the music sounds like it's making efforts, like every time it kind of rises. And first of all, the timpani is kind of doing the timpani is doing some, like a little bit of a heartbeat thing. I'll go back to, this is like the treble investment. Okay, here, see the timpani. Ding, ding, ding. Like the timpani is trying to keep it together.
Yeah.
And then the strings are trying to make something happen too. They're like, let's go. A little bit higher. Like, just keep going.
Yeah. The way that, like, we had just gotten that falling, and now we have, like, we're not fully rising, but we're falling back a little bit. We're kind of going up, but we're kind of going back a little bit. And we're not, like, all the way there. Oh, no, the thing closed, and now what are you going to do? You're upside down.
Yep. Yeah. We're hearing just the really small steps that are not quite getting anywhere, but you can feel Luke's persistence. You can see it on screen, and you can feel his persistence in the music, where he's not giving up, but it's also, not fruitful at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then keeps rising. He keeps trying. Now this is very distressing. Oh, and when the strings reach that top there, it's sort of like, to me, this sounds like last ditch attempt. Where he's, you know. Once he gets up there, you know, it's like when we hear him falling again, like down a rung or something. I can't remember exactly what happens, but yeah, that last ditch, like it gets faster just for those few measures, and then it's like, ugh, okay, I spent the last of my tank, and this is him spending the last of his tank.
Yeah. And the way that it resolves too at the very top is like the realization of like, I'm screwed. I don't know. I don't have anywhere else I can go from here. Like the music has completely come to its resolution in this moment. What's next? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not a resolution, but it has come to its end, like at the end of its road. Right. And it's interesting that right at that point is when he finally utters Ben. And the sound design is kind of like, sounds like it's part of the music. Oh my gosh. Ben.
Leia.
Oh, I love that part. Yes. Leia. So when he's yelling for Ben, which is his reaction, you know, always to go for Ben first, because that's who he knows has helped him in the past. Well, first, I'm going to put another visual on screen just so we can see, you know, where he's at.
Sweet Luke.
He says Ben's name, I think 3 times, and the music is again doing another. It's doing a lot of like effort, fail, a little effort again, fail, and it's kind of starting to make another effort. And then by the time he says Leia's name, it lands on an unexpected note, I would say. So let's hear that build up once more with the Ben stuff. Ben.
Ben, please.
This. Yeah, so when he's all bending out, you know, we're in. It's like, oh, sorry. Whoa. Actually, yeah, that's what it was. See, it's surprising. And the horn, of course, that great line. And the Leia chord, landing on where he says Leia, it kind of sets up for this next part, which is, oh my gosh, the best part ever. One of the best parts ever. Everything is the best part ever, but let's just continue.
Hear me. Leia.
know where Luke is.
What about those fighters?
Should we just do it?
All right.
Oh, okay. We need to talk about that. Before I jump in, what are your thoughts?
I love Leia.
I know.
Just that, yeah, it's the shot that you have pulled up, that
Yes.
like hitting with again, there are two different themes in this scene that have what you've been talking about, and I'm going to think about this for the rest of my life. The different themes that have the confidence to not need anything, not need much around them to be able to submit what they're doing, and this is the biggest one in Star Wars. As soon as you hear boo doo 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 doo, you're like, oh, okay, this is an epic Star Wars moment. And I question for you, is this the first time, I genuinely don't know the answer to this, that we hear the Force theme like directly connected to Leia?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the first time we've ever seen Leia do something Force related. Plus, the Force theme has previously also been kind of Ben and Luke's thing, like, if anything.
Right.
And this, I was actually going to pose a question to people who saw The Empire Strikes Back originally in the theaters in 1980, because this scene, this part where Leia, I'm going to put the image back on screen, where, everyone, you know that shot. You know that shot. You see it in Leia's eyes. Like, first we see, she looks extremely, like, very focused, and her eyes are open wide. She's not smiling or anything. She looks very just determined, just resolute, and like calmly confident. Like she doesn't question herself or anything. It's an extremely powerful shot, look, like, it's directed very powerfully. And then this Force theme, when it comes in, it is so resolute sounding. And I'll tell you what I mean. Like, okay, already it started because it had a little bit of a preamble too. It's not like coming, like it's set up really nicely to come in where it comes in, and it's not none of that complicated tonality stuff from before. It comes in very, very calmly, like A minor, and the timpani is what really striking to me, is the kind of the steady timpani, which is really anchoring it down. And then, there's just very steady, pulses happening. So.
Leia. Hear me. Leia.
We've got to go back.
What?
I know where Luke is.
And of course, it keeps playing.
Should we just do it?
All right.
It keeps going. So yeah, the Force theme plays out in its entirety. Plus, rather than being like on a lone French horn or something, we hear the Force theme in multiple powerful ways throughout this saga, on different instruments, different little configurations. And of course, the most iconic one is the French horn one from A New Hope, when Luke is staring out at the binary sunset. But I think it is less common to hear it in the string section so resolutely like this. Like, it's, it's very just, like it's, I don't know, it's in a very friendly, it's in a sweet spot for the strings. It's like the best possible place that you could put it in the range for it to just sing out.
Yeah.
And it sings out for sure.
Yeah. It sounds to me, when I hear it, I hear like a twinge of sadness to it, honestly.
Yeah.
And it feels like again, that there is like such a sense of loss. Like Leia has lost so much. Luke has obviously lost so much. We just saw him lose so much. And it's like both of them have lost so much. But then this theme cuts in, and it's like we as the audience know everything's going to be okay, but that doesn't mean that there still isn't like loss there, and that you can still like, you still have that sense of like, I like how you were using the resolute. Like it feels very resolute, and there's another word I'm searching for, steadfast. It feels very steadfast, but there's still like a sense of sadness to it because of everything that's come before. And then now that this theme is cut back in, it's like, oh, okay, no, we're going to be okay. We've lost a lot, but we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Luke's going to get saved. He's going to be reunited with Leia. And then also, I love that it's like to confirm that, it is the first time that you see this theme with Leia. It connects the two of them deeper because now Luke has established a new connection with Leia, which, going back to our conversation with The Last Jedi, is that it is like, this is the first bookend to that final bookend of the two of them, like one reaching out in their desperate need through the Force, and then the other twin reaches out also in their desperate need through the Force, and their twin is going to be there for them, which is just it's so beautiful, but it hurts so good.
Yeah. I love how much, I mean, as a sibling myself, I love how I love the sibling stuff in Star Wars. I really feel
same.
that. So what you said about the sadness that you're hearing in the Force theme here, I think is really astute and important to recognize, or, just to leave space for, because it is like the Force theme is not just unequivocally heroic and positive. And of course, there are different ways that one can hear the Force theme. So like themes themselves don't have to be locked into what their original like mood is. We hear themes kind of in different moods all the time. But here, I think when I said that the timpani and this kind of steady pulsing like made it feel more steadfast, it made it feel like anchored. It also makes that feel reminiscent of the funeral marches that we're also kind of hearing throughout here.
Yes. 100. I immediately thought funeral dirge, but I was like, is that too dark? But it feels like this feels like the Force theme that would play at a funeral, rather than like the Force theme that plays when a bride is walking down an aisle, or when like somebody is about to set off and Luke's about to set off on his adventure, and like, it's communicating something different, but it still has, that familiarity that tells us things are going to be okay.
Totally. And I mean, it's sort of like you've lost, you've lost lots of people in your troop. Again, I don't really know military terms. Sorry. Even though my brother did serve in the Army. Not the one that was on the podcast, for those curious. Our older brother. So it's like you've lost a lot of people, but you realize there's still like a survivor to go out there for. And you're not like happy about any of this situation, but you're just like, I know what I need to do. This whole thing sucks. I'm running on, I don't know what kind of fumes are keeping me alive right now, but I'm going to do this is important to do, and I need to do this. Also, okay, this is going to be my question for people who saw this in the theaters originally. I want to know, what did you think of this Leia moment when Leia detects Luke? Did it work for you? Did it feel like a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, like a little convenient that, okay, I guess now we'll just throw in a Force powers for, I'm just anticipating what potential debates could have been like. I feel like this is going to be my hypothesis. So let me know if I'm wrong. I feel like this Leia moment could only have gone off 80%. really well. Like, I feel like I can't imagine people being like dismissive of this moment, but of course I'll never underestimate what people will think about women having force powers. But
What? Women with force powers in my Star Wars? What are you talking about, Xanthi?
because coming from the perspective of someone who Leia has always been someone with force sensitivity to me, even before the sequels came out. Just think in my head, just knowing like, okay, she has it in her. You know, we didn't know that she was all trained and everything until, you know, the Rise of Skywalker, I guess. But I feel like, and this is why I think this is such a great moment for her to have her first force foray, is it's so unequivocal. Like it's not like a hint where, you know, then people can debate if it was or if it wasn't for like 10 years. It's not like, you know, at the end of The Last Jedi when there's that broom boy hint, where like some people, like to me that was like obviously a little bit of a force spark, but for some people it wasn't necessarily. And I can see, you know, I don't agree with them, but I also agree that it wasn't like an extremely overt representation of it. It was meant to be a twinkle, a little sign, a little hint. You know, if you looked away for, you know, 10 seconds, you would have missed that entirely. This is like the film is telling you this is serious. Leia is feeling Luke through the Force. This is happening. Yeah. You can't debate, like, this is happening. We're not making this ambiguous at all. Like, the music is not making it ambiguous. And I think this is why it's like such a perfect first moment for Leia. You can't deny it. It's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I just don't know what other way you could read it. Because the camera, everything, all of the elements are working together here to tell us she is force sensitive. Because how else would she... It's not like she was just flying and we don't see Luke. If we didn't see Luke saying Leia, we just saw them flying and she's like, wait, I think we need to go back.
Yeah. Like,
we need to go back. Then you're like,
oh, maybe she thought
like,
they forgot him, or we should just check again.
Is it just Leia being like Leia and persistent and being like, no, like my gut is telling me to go back? No, Luke is literally saying her name and she is responding. There's a call and response. So it's 100% her force sensitivity. And I think it's also rounding out what Yoda says, no, there is another. So it's like, okay, now we have those bookends in this movie. And then obviously we're going to see it in the next one when Vader's like, maybe your sister will train with me, or I forget exactly what he says. But yeah, it's undeniable in my mind that she's very force sensitive at this moment, for sure. Yeah,
me too. But I'm just curious, people who saw this in 1980, I want to know if this was a subject of any sort of, I want to know what the conversations were like, because this to me is a huge reveal. Like, the Darth Vader being Luke's father is a big reveal. And I'm trying to think of someone who only knew A New Hope, and then am seeing this for the first time. Leia, formerly Princess Leia of Alderaan, in the cell block, in the prison on the Death Star. Like, the fact that she is having this force moment is a huge reveal.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I just realized is, if you're seeing this for the first time, and this is only the only other one you saw was New Hope before this, you don't know they're siblings.
Yeah, so I want to know what...
Yeah, we're coming into the context of like, oh, okay, duh, she would be force sensitive. They're twins. Of course, like, twins would be force sensitive. You know who their father is. But then it's like, oh, shoot. Well, you don't know they're twins. You don't know they're related. Does it feel coincidence? Because also in this moment, George Lucas hadn't planned for them to be siblings, right?
I don't think so. And so I'm curious, like, I wonder if people kind of guessed that before it was revealed based on this.
Because that's such an interesting question. It's so hard.
I would have been theorizing for years of like, why did they clearly have a special connection. What is that connection?
Yeah, because then it's like, and then it's what we were all doing with Rey and Kylo in the sequel trilogy. Like, what is their connection? You know, it feels like it could be like a nod to that. But no, it never occurred to me that there's a world where where people didn't know that Luke and Leia were siblings. So it's just like you watch and you're like always like, oh yeah, does she has a connection? But man, that's a really interesting exercise to try and revisit these movies and truly try and look at them with only the information you had at the time when watching that movie.
Totally. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Totally. And why it's so cool talking to fans who grew up with different generations of Star Wars trilogies or media. Yeah. Okay. So this is happening and she is, I don't care, just do it. Lando's like, all right.
I let my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival.
Oh, Vader. I think that line may have been a change in the special edition.
Okay.
I think originally he said, bring my shuttle. So, yeah. Oh. And then the rest of the scene is extended with an additional shot of Vader walking to a shuttle and arriving on his Star Destroyer. So
interesting. So they cut it down.
No, I think they added an additional shot.
So wait, what does he say? What does he say originally, and what does he say again in what it is in the...
So originally he said, bring my shuttle. Uh-huh. And then now he says, alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival.
Alert. Okay. Why did I think he said, bring me my ship?
Well, because he originally said, bring my shuttle.
Bring my shuttle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think this happened in the special... I'm looking on Wikipedia at this point. The special edition, 1997 special editions. I don't really know what difference that line makes, to be honest.
I think it gives him a sense of superiority, and like it also when I hear Star Destroyer, it tells me, oh no, are they actually out of the clear yet? Like a shuttle tells me that he's shuttling him somewhere else. But it's like, alert my ship, I'm getting on my Star Destroyer. He doesn't know where Luke is, so of course he's still going to be looking for Luke. And a Star Destroyer coming after Luke to find Luke versus a shuttle coming after Luke feels more perilous.
Yeah, I'll take that. That sounds like a great answer.
That's interesting that they changed it, though.
Yeah, I'm curious, again, question for original people who saw this and perhaps had the tapes of the original films. Did you notice this change? Is this one of the ones that you noticed that you paid attention to? Yeah, just curious. Okay, so now we continue. So I call this the Pseudo Bald Mountain strings.
Look, someone's up there.
It's Luke. Chewie, slow down. Slow down or we'll get under. Lando, open the top hatch.
So I've mentioned this many times this season, I feel like, and I will probably, I'm just going to keep calling it the Pseudo Bald Mountain because, Night on Bald Mountain, from Fantasia. And then here we're like in various octaves and it's always this very quick, slurred, chromatic thing where it goes up a half step and down a half step. Up a half step, lives in a very small space. It's very cramped and tense, and I think it is really nice juxtaposed with the wind, which also is kind of subtly going like kind of a little bit up and down as well. And so,
yeah, it works really nicely together. I feel like a lot of this, like the back half of this of these minutes, the music, aside from the Force theme, feels very Fantasia to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Bald Mountain thing is a big part of that, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's the back half of Fantasia where it gets really scary.
So scary.
Okay, let's continue. There's only 20 seconds left.
Okay. Easy, Chewie.
Leia's in control.
Yeah, she is.
Leia knows what she's doing there. And I love to see her in control. Control is, she's steering the ship.
Yeah, she's in command. She's like, Chewie, do this. Leia, do this. Everyone do this. And I love when she just says it and people just do it. I love when there's no questions asked. She told you to do something. She gave you an order. General Organa wants you to do something, and you listen. You listen to the general when she wants something done.
Yes, you do. You do. In the background, or in the music, we've been hearing the Dark Side melody. I mean, that's just what Frank Lehman calls it in his catalog. I'll put a link in the show notes. The complete catalog to the musical themes of Star Wars, and it's that do 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 do. Yeah, it's not a great vocal rendition, but. There we go.
Yeah.
Basically. And we've been hearing that kind of over and over again. But yeah, Leia's about to get Luke. And then I just love everything about how the rest of this movie goes. So, yeah, that's these minutes.
Love it. Powerful, so rich, so full, so sad, so beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. Really big props also, of course, to Ben Burtt with his sound design. Cloud City is such a specific place. And it feels like I don't question this ridiculous, like Luke has been like down elevator shaft, down like a shaft into like a pipe. Now he's like on a weather vane, just in this cloud city. And yeah, somehow I don't question that. Somehow I don't question where he is. And sound design has a lot to do with making a space believable.
Yeah. The world building that we take for granted, all the world building that sound design does to fully immerse us into a place that doesn't exist. And I hadn't heard a lot of the sounds in this scene because they all work together so seamlessly. Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts about this set of minutes, the music in this movie in general?
No, I
how
don't
Luke
think
and
so.
Leia's moment compares to the Last Jedi moment.
I think I love to see, it's like you get to see the reverse of it. I like that in this one, it's Luke calling out to her for the first time. And then we see, I'm trying to remember exactly. She doesn't ever actually vocally say Luke's name in The Last Jedi, does she?
I think she does. You mean before he comes?
Before he comes, like at
Before
least
he comes,
in those.
no.
Yeah.
Because I think he just walks in and she's like.
Yeah. And it's like he senses her. So you get to see like how their connection has grown from this movie to that movie. Now I want to ask, I have some colleagues at work who I want to ask that same question. Like, did you know that they were siblings when you first saw this movie when you were a kid? Because now I'm just so curious how people's perspectives of Luke and Leia changed through the movies based on when they were experiencing them without that knowledge that I came into the movies knowing that they were siblings.
yeah, I'm curious too from everyone I know. I'm gonna be asking people now. Yeah, their connection is one of the bedrocks, I think, of the trilogy to me. And we don't quite see something like that in the prequels, where there's like that powerful force connection between two people. We do see it in the sequels. And it's just something that I like in Star Wars.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think showing force sensitivity as being like something that connects to people, which is kind of antithetical to no attachments or whatever. I mean, it's not really, I don't think it is, but Luke's primary manifestation of her force ability comes through, in relationship to someone she loves, as a beacon for sensing when he is in danger and needs her. So I think that's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. I love it.
We talked about how Leia was like the rock of Star Wars in that conversation, and this is like kind of this movie kind of reinforces a lot of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's very steadfast and very, resolute, and always knows what she's going to do, and always does the right thing. So that's why when you see her at her low in The Last Jedi, and it's like, it's flipped. Okay, the person that is the resolute one. Like, who can be the rock for Leia when Leia is the rock for someone else?
Yes.
And especially, like, she's been the rock for Luke. And now it's like, oh, in this moment, like, he can be a rock for her at her lowest point. And you don't ever really see her at her lowest point.
Into The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what makes her low point in The Last Jedi makes it feel so hopeless, because Leia is not the person who gives up. We've never, and so it gives weight to that. So I have a question for you as a writer and like screenwriter. What do you think of the way that Leia in the original trilogy is written? As obviously in this day and age, there's a lot of debate and lots of thoughts and lots of screenwriters and studios trying to do things with female characters, sometimes I think to really weird results, like varying degrees of success. So in this time, in the 70s and 80s, just what do you think of Leia and her writing as a character?
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to put myself into the headspace of like what it would be like to be growing up at that time and to have a character like Leia. I mean, she, in her writing, is definitely at that point completely revolutionary. You like don't have any female characters like that who are the ones who are in charge, who are the ones who are surrounded by large groups of men and aren't folding to them, but the way that no one is questioning her power, I think, is like really important. Because a lot of times female characters, the way that they're written is that they have so many hurdles to overcome to prove that they are worthy of being heard and worthy of their power, but she's just not questioned in her authority in these movies, which I really love. I will say I feel like Leia in the Return of the Jedi, as soon as she gets captured and by Java and is put into that metal bikini, it's like from that point on to the end of the movie, she feels very passive, which is compared to what we've seen of her in the previous, especially in A New Hope and in Return of the Jedi. It feels like she is following other people's leads rather than making the plans herself. And part of me wonders, like, what are the things that changed in her life that and that thus results in her acting this way? And is it like her deeper connection with Han, the fact that she's more falling in love? Does that, and I have no answers, but this is just what I've observed in terms of her, the way she's written as a character, when her relationship with Han is more cemented, when her relationship with Luke is more cemented, especially in those movies, it feels like she takes more of a back seat to Han, who is now all of a sudden the one who is making plans and like being the big hero, and she's following along. And Luke is obviously on his like go help Vader, help redeem Vader journey, but we don't really get a big, this is probably the last like big heroic moment for Leia, I feel like, in the trilogy. I have to go back and rewatch Return of the Jedi, but it's like, yeah, she goes in to save Han, but then she gets captured, and then she's kind of very passive for the rest of the movie.
I can't wait to watch Return of the Jedi again with this in mind. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. I feel like I don't disagree. I mean, her relationship with both of those men are cemented more toward the end of the movie, I feel. But I don't know. Is it really the end of the movie? It's maybe 2/3 through the movie. I'm not really sure. But I do feel like Han definitely steps up in a more like he becomes more protective and stuff, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And that I've always felt not great about Han.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the trilogy as a whole and the arcs of our trio. And it feels like Leia starts at a place other characters are trying to get to.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, where do you go from there? You know? And it's like, what is the thing that changes her trajectory as a character from being here? And it's Han. It's like this character coming in and completely throwing her world off in terms of like her internal character development. Obviously there's stuff going on with the rebellion and fighting the war, but now that she's got these like two men who collide into her story, you know, and yes, they help rescue her, but it's like from that point on, she's like, yes, trying to fight for the rebellion, but she's also wrestling for feelings with Han. And I'm not saying that like, I think oftentimes in a lot of very recent media, whenever we have strong female characters, there's an emphasis that like, oh, she doesn't need a man in her life. She's a strong, totally independent woman. Yeah, and it's like, and I wish that there was more of a balance of both, that like, yes, you can still be like very strong and independent, but like wanting love and wanting that companionship and that kind of relationship doesn't inherently make you weak. And I think a lot of times it's seen as that way.
Yes.
And so I feel like with Leia is that a lot of her arc is around her feelings for Han and wrestling with those feelings for Han. And then once she comes to terms with those feelings for Han and accepts that she loves him, we see her rescuing him. They kiss, and then she gets captured, and then I feel like she's very passive through the rest of the movie. So my question is, was her arc getting to a point of accepting this love from Han? And I don't think that that's like truly like the only thing that her arc is about. I'd have to go back and like rewatch the entire trilogy to think about it more, but the headline is Leia is very passive in Return of the Jedi, and it feels like she takes a big backseat after how active she's been in the first two movies. And I think a lot of it is because she starts up here, and it's like, where does she go from there? You know, and where does she go from there? She goes to General in The Force Awakens, is what it feels like.
Very interesting. Have you read Princess and the Scoundrel?
I have read Princess and the Scoundrel,
Okay.
and it does a lot. It helps me a lot in terms of their relationship. I will say.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it helps me a lot because I was definitely somebody who was like not a big like Han and Leia fan. It always like felt very creepy. And then also doing the table read, the script, I encourage you to go glance through it and take a look at the way that their scenes are written. And it's very just like kind of gross. Or not gross, but very just like cringe.
Oh, funny, because going through Empire Strikes Back 5 minutes at a time, like I felt that way about Han and Leia's relationship already before, but then watching it in this movie and seeing it actually acted out, I warmed up to their relationship because think of the way, Carrie Fisher's performance, where I feel like she does, I don't know, I feel like I can feel her desire, which is not necessarily, like you could read the page in a completely different way. But I think Leia's, or, Carrie Fisher's performance, the direction of those scenes does make it work a little bit better in my mind. Again, it's still perhaps not great, but I believe their attraction, at least their short-term love attraction. I've read Princess and the Scoundrel too, so I do know that like one of the things is like, okay, was this kind of heat of the moment ruffles type of thing where she kind of questions the longevity and maybe the quickness with which they got together and stuff, which was helpful for me too. In that book,
100%. And I don't know if it's in Princess and the Scoundrel or if it was someone else that was it might have been Beth Revis talking about how she watched Empire a lot when she was writing Princess and the Scoundrel, and her understanding of the whole "I love you, I know" line being the fact that Leia isn't very good with communicating her feelings, and Han saying "I know" is a way to like, you don't have to say it, I know.
That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, and I love that interpretation. It helps me so much more with the character of Han. I wish she was a little more active in Return of the Jedi, I will say.
It's fair. Well, thanks for answering that question. It's something I think about a lot because of what you said, when female characters that are written to be strong often are, in movies in modern times, sometimes they're like weirdly too strong in a way that's not real, like where it feels like they can't have love too, or like they shouldn't want it, where sometimes it feels like, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is like, I guess the specifics of Return of the Jedi aside, overall in Star Wars, I do appreciate how like badass of a character Leia is, and she still gets love, and she still has this brother, and she kind of has a lot overall, like that she gets, like a lot that she's allowed to experience. She's not always so strong that she doesn't feel emotion. Like she is in distress and she is strong, and she kind of feels really grounded in a way that like I feel like she's, at least in Empire and A New Hope, she's probably a better written female character than a lot of current attempts that people make. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I think a lot about what the trilogy would look like if Pat, not Padme. Padme's always on the brain. Whoopsie. Yeah. This applies to prequel trilogy too, but if Leia was the protagonist, like the main character of the original trilogy, what does that trilogy look like? And I don't know. We may never know.
Yeah. Interesting to think about. Yeah. Well, anyway, the cues from these set of minutes were 12M1, losing a hand. Is that it? That might be it. It also potentially, Dominic, let me know if I'm wrong. I can't remember the exact delineation of these cues. Maybe, have we started to hyperspace yet? Anyway, losing a hand is definitely the big cue in this. And the musical themes that we heard were the Imperial March. We heard a little bit of the Trouble in Bespin stuff. We heard the Force theme, and we heard a couple of the dark side themes. We heard the ostinato, which was like and the melody. And then in the soundtrack, this is Rescue from Cloud City / Hyperspace. Are you ready to answer the Star Wars Music Minute questionnaire for the second time?
I am. Let me pull up my answers.
Awesome. Okay. Question number 1. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Tragedy, adventure, and wisdom.
Ah.
And I was trying to think, I should have gone back to listen to the words that I chose last time to try and come up with different words, but I think those are different than what I chose last time.
One of them is the same.
Is adventure the same? Or
No.
tragedy?
Tragedy. But it's funny, you ended with tragedy last time, and you're starting with tragedy this time.
Because Star Wars music always makes me so sad. So tragedy. It's the headspace I'm in, I guess, right now.
Oh, I like the wisdom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll be thinking about that. Mm-hmm. Question number 2 is, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you're curious about, that you want to learn more about?
I think, especially it's something I was thinking a lot about in terms of like these minutes is like sound design. Like the question that you were asking about, did John know that this music was with the wind was going to sound this way when he was composing? Did he not? Like, how do these elements come together to make a scene? Like, I guess the technicalities behind it of like, how do you choose what sounds you're going to use to build out the world of the scene, and then how do you mix that in with the music, and how they're working together to try and build out the scene and build out a picture of what's happening with the story. So I guess just sound design in general.
I really want to know that too. Yeah. I wish all that stuff was recorded. Then we could just kind of just watch all of those conversations that were taking place.
Right.
All the little attempts and like, hey, John, this is what we're thinking for this wind sound.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
In honor of the fact that we have the final season of Succession dropping this coming Sunday, I'm going to shout out the score, Nicholas Bertel's phenomenal Succession score, and the fact that I think we were talking about this with the Force theme, and how we have the Force theme, but it sounds very different depending on the context you're in. And Nicholas Bertel does that with the Succession theme, and he does it with Andor if we're talking about Star Wars, but outside of Star Wars, with the Succession theme, it's like you hear that all the time throughout the show, but it's very different depending the context that you're in the scene, what's happening in the scene, and it contributes so well. So it's like, we know what this show sounds like, but the versatility of that theme, I think, is really, really powerful in the way that he uses it throughout the show.
Oh man, I need to watch that show.
Oh, it's great.
What's it on?
It's on HBO Max.
I don't have HBO, so that's why.
Yeah, I would be very curious to hear your thoughts, because you always come with some very, very interesting and wonderful insight that I never think of. So if you do end up watching it, please let me know. I will let you know,
I would like for sure. Discuss. Sounds good.
But yeah, if anything, watch it for the music, because the music is insane and so good.
Yeah, I am curious, especially after I really liked the Andor score. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, last but not least, where can people listen to your podcast, find, the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, you can listen to Beings of the Galaxy wherever you listen to podcasts. You can, season 1 and 2 are streaming, which I think it's like, I want to say it's like 20 something episodes.
Nice.
Which is great. And Beings of the Galaxy pod on Instagram, and then Beings_podcast on Twitter. And that's what I'm doing right now, or
Awesome.
not doing right now, but that's what I've done. So that's what you can check out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I always love talking about Star Wars with you too. And I think this will probably be coming out around the time Celebration is going on.
Oh wow! So
Maybe?
we can be sad in California together.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to like offload Instagram because I have such horrible FOMO, and just like go into some hole somewhere. So I'll just Google the news that drops, but the FOMO is going to be so real.
Yeah. Okay, this will come out the week after Celebration. So
Okay.
Celebration people will be back, but also it'll be like a little bit of a pick-me-up since after Celebration.
go.
But during Celebration, you can text me anytime to be like, oh my gosh, I heard this thing happened. So sad I missed it, or whatever.
Yeah. Right
Feel
back
free.
at you.
Sounds good.
Maybe I'll go to Disneyland and just sit at Galaxy's Edge all weekend.
With the other Star Wars Celebration people who wish they could have been there instead.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, this is the end of the episode, not the end of the season. Only a couple more episodes left this season. Wild. You are like the third to last, or second to last, or third to last person.
Wow.
And listeners, thank you so much for sticking with me on this journey. May the Force be with you, and thank you for listening to Star Wars Music Minute.